10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello and welcome to the Global Classroom, a unique global initiative that allows you to join with millions of children around the world to discuss key issues, gain inspiration and hopefully spark creativity. Now today we're looking at how we can learn from others and also how art has a positive influence on our well-being. And we're going on a journey around the world to hear from academics, authors and truly inspirational people. Together, we will see what we can learn from our ancestors, our elders, from animals, and of course that importance of, appreciating art forms and using it to relax and stay calm and to stay focused. Before we start, a fair warning today, you might want to run around your house and get some equipment you might need for this session. You're going to need at least one piece of paper. A plain white one will be perfect for it, one black pencil, one orange pencil, and a blue pencil. Now, because we have a very special guest coming on later on, that will give you a quick drawing lesson, and we'd love to see your pictures when you draw them as well. That's enough from me. Let's start our journey around the world this morning with our great friends, National Geographic. I want to introduce to you now the National Geographic Young Explorer, who is Zoe Jenkins. Now, she's amazing. She talks from the heart, really inspiring, and it's actually about creating change in this world as well. Now, Zoe, I can see you on my screen. Can I say a quick hello, first of all? Zoe, are you here in the Global Classroom?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Mr. Shaw and everyone for having me. And thank you all for joining us. So as Mr. Shaw said, I'm Zoe Jenkins. I am calling in from Kentucky in the United States. So it's good morning for me. And I am a young explorer with National Geographic, working to tell the stories of students as they're going through school, which is so incredibly important. It is so important to listen to all generations, but especially young people and kids, because children hold so much power to tackle the issues that are facing our communities and our families. And we are, today just going to highlight one of those really incredible young people, Tiasa, who is a fellow National Geographic Young Explorer. She's a 19-year-old conservationist from Nairobi, Kenya, and a graduate of the African Leadership Academy in South Africa. And she has a passionate commitment to conservation and considers herself a wildlife warrior. So at age 15, she founded Teens for Wildlife, which is a space for Kenyan and other African youth to share, learn about, and explore and discover the value of Africa's wildlife. So with that, Tiasa, please tell me more about Teens for Wildlife and what motivated you to start at such a young age.
Thank you so much, Zoe, and hello everybody. I'm Tiasa from Kenya. What motivated me? So when I was 15, I heard about how fast we're losing our African wildlife, and I was like, how is it that nobody's talking about it? Why is it that this is not on the news? Why is it not on our newspapers? And why isn't nobody else concerned about this? And that's when I decided to start Teens for Wildlife as a movement to educate the Kenyan youth and African youth as a whole about the importance of wildlife, because I believe that through learning things, you get to learn to love things, and you do anything to protect what you love. And for me, that's been my wildlife. And so I've been just able to interact with so many young people from different parts of the continent, and in Kenya specifically, where I've been able to interact with them, and they've been able to join me in sharing my love and passion for these animals.
Wow, wow, wow. That is absolutely amazing. And Tiasa, why do you think it is so important to listen to youth?
That's a wonderful question. I think that we as young people, we are the future. And I think that what we get to say, and with using our voices to speak about the injustices that we have today, we can be able to change tomorrow, and the future is ours. And I've been able to meet as so many different young people, as I said. This has been a time where I've been able to engage with as passionate people who understand the importance of wildlife just like I do, and I've been able to connect with other Kenyans how we met the Teams for Wildlife team. And with this team, we've been able to further educate more young people, create that ripple effect, and get people fighting and be like, hey, I want to protect my elephants, I want to protect my lions and my giraffes, and standing together as young people and saying, these animals are ours, the future is ours, and so we need to be part of how we want our future to be is for my children, your children, everybody's children to be able to appreciate these animals. And so with young people, we have that potential to stand and have that power to say, this is what we want for tomorrow, this is what I want for our future, because the future is ours. And so it's just been very beautiful to see how so many young people from Kenya and across the continent have been able to stand with me in my movement.
That is so incredibly beautiful, Tiasa. And so I know it's so important that we're listening and focusing on young people, but it's also important to work across generations. So how important is it to you that we work across generations, and how do you do that in your work?
That's a beautiful question. I think working across generations is very important. Because the older generation, they've seen things, they've learned things, and they're able to help us make sure we don't make the same mistakes they did. They're able to help us understand that, hey, this didn't work the way I wanted it to do, so how about help us in other ways? And through mentorship, for example, I've been able to walk this journey as a conservationist with my mentor, Dr. Paula Kahumbu, who I've been able to look up as a role model, and as someone who looks like me in this space, I've been able to learn about the importance of wildlife, how as a Kenyan and how as an African, wildlife has been part of my heritage for generations to come. And for example, just using my grandmother, so my grandmother uses stories about animals when she's talking about different parables and how to learn different lessons. She uses animals as a way to connect and back to being able to understand that in her generation, animals was such a part of her being. They were able to coexist in different environments and communities, and that being passed down to me with new information about, why the hyena has spots, why the giraffe is so tall. Through these stories, I've been able to, that's how I learned so much about these animals, and I was so passionate to want to know more about them. So yeah, it's just been so important to understand that working together with these two across generations is important, because we're able to come up with new ideas or improve the ideas that already are existing.
Yes, and final question is, what advice do you have for young people, the people watching this broadcast, for them wanting to get involved in this work?
That is my favorite question of all time. And all I can say is that your time is now. Go ahead and do it. It doesn't matter how small you think your idea is, because it's not small. That small thing that you think is small can grow to be a big tree of importance and be inspiring to other people. So that little idea that you think is tiny is not little. Go ahead and do it. I believe in you. All the way from Kenya, I want you to know Tiasa is rooting for you, because you could do whatever it is that you want to do. It does not matter how young you are, because all you need to do is believe in yourself. My passion is about protecting animals. Go ahead and find your passion. Find what you like to do and run with it, because you have the power to find your passion, and you have the power to make change for tomorrow.
I absolutely love that. And I'll echo what Tiasa said. I am also rooting for you. And I know that there are so many other young people and people across generations rooting for you as well. Your age does not mean that you can't start now. You don't have to wait until you leave school. You don't have to wait until, you have a job. You can, start right now. And that can be as small as just talking to your friends and family. You can start an organization like what Tiasa did. There are a lot of ways to have a really powerful impact. And that's kind of what we're all about at National Geographic, empowering young people through our Gen Geo initiative, that you can create change at any age. And so I know that Tiasa and I are both excited to see what kind of change you all are going to create. And so with that, I will pass it back to Mr. Shaw. Thank you so much, Tiasa.
Well, Tiasa and Zoe, that was absolutely amazing. I think the message there is so important. And I know for myself, as a headmaster of a school, being here at Scaresbury Hall, it's that message saying to anybody watching this, the thought of listening to your elders, taking the wisdom of generations, but actually finding your passion and going with it. Don't let anything hold you back. Once you find that spark, you run with it, you get a pace with it, you get the energy behind it, and you can make things happen. And we're being inspired here by stories from National Geographic Young Explorers around the world that are saying, we've done it, you can do it, join with us, let's make a change happen, let's make this world a positive place going into. And we know that we've talked about COVID so much, but actually there's a chance we're going to come out of this and to energize the world in a unified, strong way and make these kind of changes. So an inspirational message from the team there with Zoe as well. And Tias, I can't thank you enough for a brilliant message. Now, you will know if you're following the Global Classroom that we have an amazing set of partners that we work with around the world. One of those is the Smithsonian Science Education Center, and they take this amazing knowledge that they have there and the researchers and the ideas and the museums and a tremendous amount of concepts of knowledge. But actually, the Science Education Center make that accessible to people, to young people, ignites their imagination as well. So it's my privilege to introduce someone we know very well here in the Global Classroom, and that's Carol O'Donnell, who's a director at Smithsonian Science Education Center. Carol, how are you?
Thank you so much, Mr. Shaw. It's so good to see you. And thank you again, always, for inviting the Smithsonian to be a part of this important global event. Hi, everyone. It's good to be with you today. As Mr. Shaw mentioned, my name is Carol O'Donnell, and I'm the director of what's called the Smithsonian Science Education Center. And I work in Washington, D.C., which is in the United States. I'm also an educator, and I've been an educator since 1983. So that's 37 years of being in the classroom. Today, you're going to hear from my colleague, Michaela Pavlat. She's an educator too, but she's also an artist. Michaela is a cultural interpreter at the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian and an enrolled member of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. She graduated from Northern Michigan University in 2016 with a Bachelor's of Fine Arts with a concentration in drawing and painting, and studied a wide range of art history. You're going to do some art today as well. As a creative being, Michaela uses her artwork to educate audiences about Native American culture and the misappropriation of Indigenous cultures. Michaela's goal is to develop a museum in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in the United States and to use artwork and local Native people's voices to educate others. Today, Michaela is going to show you some of the special objects of art and culture from the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian. Michaela?
Hello, thank you so much. Wow, that was a great introduction. Forgot I had that. Hello, everybody. My name is Michaela. As she mentioned, I am a Anishinaabe or Ojibwe from Michigan. I'm a citizen of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians, and that is my nation. We are located in the Great Lakes region of North America. And I am calling you from Washington, D.C., the United States capital. And I am, excuse me, a cultural interpreter, which means I'm an educator. And I would like to show you just a little bit about our museum, the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. So here is our beautiful building. This is the museum on the National Mall. I just want to show you a little bit of where I'm visiting from. So this is a beautiful place where we get to work, and this museum actually represents Native communities of the entire Western Hemisphere. So not just Native Americans in the United States, but of North America, South America, and Central America. Those over 2,000 communities. And today, I'm going to share a little bit about my own culture and community through the 7 grandfather teachings. So the 7 grandfather teachings in Ojibwe culture has been traditionally passed down through, elders telling stories, teaching lodges, but it's passed down generation to generation. And today I'm going to share just a few elements about these really important values that help us really center ourselves and help us create a balance between our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. The stories of the origins of the 7 grandfather teachings can be seen in multiple Anishinaabe or Ojibwe communities, and they can vary depending on where they are located. Again, being from the Great Lakes region, these are 2 examples of how we view our teachings. So despite where the teachings may have originated, they have the same concepts of, abiding by this moral respect for all living things. So we follow these 7 teachings. So follow along with me. We have humility, bravery, honesty, respect, truth, love, and wisdom. So within those 7 teachings, we will look to an animal and to nature to really listen and follow the values of that animal. So for example, on the left, you can see truth. And these are actually 2 of my art pieces that I did about the 7 teachings. So this is contemporary art, and this is how I interpret the 7 teachings. So the truth is saying, be faithful to reality. So the truth is represented by a turtle, as he was there during the creation of Earth and carries the teachings of life on his back. But the way that we can see it and follow the turtle is, it's a slow moving creature. And he moves so slowly because he understands the importance of both the journey and destination. And so understanding truth is, understanding your place in this life and apply that understanding to the way that you carry yourself. So this means be true to yourself in all other things. This is something that I see in all ages, no matter how old you are. You have truth in you. And again, it's the way of being faithful to yourself and trusting the process. And then we have the wolf with humility, which says treat all life equally. And so this is represented by the wolf because as wolves follow in a pack, that's what their life is dedicated to. So if we think about it in our own lives, we're dedicated to our family and to our communities. And so this is really understanding and respecting our place and the way that we carry our pride with our people. And we praise the accomplishments of all. So we kind of find this balance within ourselves and all living things. So we respect how we treat ourselves and other people, but also the environment and the way that we can really see that we are all equal. So another way that, we kind of learn this is how we can stay connected. If sometimes I feel lost, if I'm feeling down, I might turn to these principles. And I might be a little bit kinder to myself or to other people because I understand humility. So this is something that you can carry, and that this really varies across Indigenous communities. These stories have a lot of power. And I also want to share a little bit about, art and what that means to our people. So these are paintings, but Native peoples actually can share their beliefs, their understanding through many ways, through many art forms. So I want to show you just one example of this beautiful collection piece that we have in our museum, which is actually in New York. So we have a sister museum that we share this with, and this is a birch bark house. And this is a way that we can share our contemporary homes, because our homes did not always look like this. There are wigwams which are made from birch bark. So I just want to show you a little bit about what birch bark looks like. So I have this piece right here, just so you can see it a little bit better. So this is the birch bark, and this is how we can continue to express and honor our traditions, but make contemporary items. And another thing is we turn to nature for medicine, and medicine in many ways. So another thing is this sweetgrass. So sweetgrass smells amazing, and it can be medicine by the way that we burn it, or the way that's in a circle right now, it's protecting me. Now I want to show you a piece that my aunt made, and it might look familiar. This is a turtle, and this is made from sweetgrass. So remember, our turtle is representing truth. So sometimes I might look to this turtle. He's made of medicine, but he can continue to teach me how to be truthful to society. And these stories are told continuously through generations. And I'm so happy to share that with you today, and connecting yourself to some of our own values, and maybe adding a few of Anishinaabe or Ojibwe values to your core values. So that's all I wanted to share a little bit, but now I want to bring it back, Carol, back into the conversation.
So I think, Mr. Shaw, you have a few questions?
Yeah, we do actually. So if you're okay, Michaela, I've got some questions coming into you now.
Okay.
And these have been sent in to us, which we really appreciate. And please do keep emailing in a question on that side of it. You can log in via Teams. The first question I've got here is from Carmen from Madrid. It says up here, interesting question. We hear a lot about fake news and also historical inaccuracies. How can we make sure the role of Americans is represented truthfully?
That is an amazing question. Caught me off because I could really ramble about this, but I really appreciate that you were thinking about that, about including Indigenous perspective. One way that people can support Indigenous stories and history is to listen. To listen and include Indigenous voices in the narrative. So a lot of times I was missing in, especially in American history, a lot of that was missing. So now we're working more so to add Native perspective. So that's part of our museums. Our mission and our vision is to empower those Indigenous communities. And how we do that is with our allies. So people like you all the way over from Madrid, you're thinking about Indigenous perspective. And a huge part of that is listening and giving space for Indigenous peoples to share their values. So we have a program coming up. Yeah, we have a Youth in Action program coming up in December that's going to talk about that and how we change that narrative.
Okay, I mean, I'm really quite impressed by somebody in Madrid thinking about that and going through that. So thank you for that question. It's quite a deep one. And now the next question is a bit more close to home from you, because somebody called Andrew, actually in Michigan, has sent a question in there. Now, I know you don't know the Andrew from Michigan at all, but the question was, what do I need to do to become a cultural interpreter?
Oh, man, I love that. And I was joking earlier, this is not my relative. I don't know this person. But as I mentioned, this is an education role. And my background is in art, in history. So there's really so many ways to get involved, to be a cultural interpreter or an educator, and it can happen at any level. I think that's really important. You know, of course, to get into the Smithsonian, you can join internships, you can write in. I think it really starts at home in your own community to be an educator, because really that's what we are, and that's what we want to continue to share. You know, so way up in Michigan, you can be an interpreter and sharing your stories and educating people.
That's brilliant. Hopefully inspirational. And you never know, Andrew, if you do go on that path, do let us know, and we can sort of share that across at the same time. You may even meet Andrew at some point in Michigan, but it is a big place, Michigan as well. The next one's a bit further away from you, from, I think I pronounced it correctly, Toulon. So Talon's in Sweden and says, I'd like to study more about the culture of Native Americans. And I think Talon is somebody who's very much into art and wants to perhaps integrate that into the artwork, especially the art side of it. Where do you think I can learn more about this, and particularly the techniques they use in art?
Oh, wow. There are a ton of resources. Of course, on our website at americanindian.si.edu, you can learn more about Native nations. Another really great thing is that you can look up tribal nations and their own websites, and they do talk a lot about their history. So for example, I have my own nation's website. It's SiouxTribe.com. But if you're interested in the Southwest, like the Navajo and the weaving and the artwork or pottery with the Hopi, they have their own websites too. And you can learn directly from that nation or community.
Amazing. So again, you know, I think there's a lot to learn from here. And I know that connecting to our generations, to our ancestors, the stories, the arts, the craft, the artwork can really inspire what we go forward. Some great set of questions. Thank you for sharing a bit about your life, Michaela, as well, and you know, your own beliefs and what you shared. That I love what you brought with you know, the image there of how we use techniques to craft different things as well. It's beautiful, very personal to you, and I fully recommend going to those websites you mentioned as well and taking part in that. A great thing to go and do. Thank you very much. I think I'm handing back to Carol now, who's going to introduce our next guest. Carol, are you still with us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Michaela. I want to echo Mr. Shaw's comments. That was wonderful. And I loved the questions, of course, that the students asked from all around the world. At the Smithsonian, as you noted, we care deeply about helping young children learn through objects in our collection that you shared, artwork like that you shared, museum exhibits, education, science, and of course, cultural experts like Michaela. So thank you, Michaela. And now I want to introduce Dr. Megan Collins. Dr. Collins is a medical doctor at the Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States. She is a pediatric ophthalmologist. This means that she's a doctor who specializes in treating eye conditions in children. She's also an educator, but instead of teaching young children like you, she teaches adults at the Johns Hopkins Berman Institute of Bioethics and the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Dr. Collins' research interests include the doctor-patient relationship, public health ethics, and barriers in access to pediatric eye care. Dr. Collins is also a co-director of Johns Hopkins Consortium for School-Based Health Solutions. You know, at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Collins and her colleagues developed an online curriculum to teach kids about the virus that causes COVID-19, turning them into advocates as a way to stop the spread. Students can learn about the biology of the virus, why you wear a face mask, and why the virus can spread in people who have no symptoms. And the best part about it is that the curriculum is completely free and something you can use in your community. Welcome, Dr. Collins.
Thank you, Carol, for that lovely introduction. Hello from Baltimore, Maryland, where we have just passed the noon hour. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Hi, Megan. So,
Hello, Mr. Shaw.
no problem at all. Can you still hear me okay? Is that all right?
I can, absolutely.
Great. So, from our point of view, we have lots of guests in the global classroom, and you're sat there in a white coat. Wonderful shot there as well. We've heard what you do. Talk us a bit, first of all, about your day-to-day job and what it actually means and what is it like right now in the pandemic as well.
Sure. So I'm a pediatric eye doctor, and as Carol mentioned, I work at Johns Hopkins, what's called the Wilmer Eye Institute, which is our ophthalmology department. And my job is really sort of divided into a couple different areas. I see patients every week, and I see patients who come into my clinic from the outpatient setting, so that they come in to see me in clinic and then they go home. I also operate on patients. Sometimes they need to stay in the hospital after surgery, and sometimes they go home right afterwards. And mostly what I operate on is sometimes people have an eye problem where an eye will drift inwards towards their nose or outwards, and it may cause them to have double vision. And I do surgery surgery to correct conditions like that. I also, one of the favorite parts of my job is I get to see the babies in the neonatal nursery who are born prematurely because sometimes they can have an eye condition that impacts their eyes. And so I screen them there. But I also, as Carol mentioned, I'm an educator. I'm the daughter of a teacher, and I help teach both our medical students as well as our ophthalmology residents and fellows about the eyes and about my other interests, which are largely about public health and education and how do we do outreach through programs like our new Hopkins Health Education and Training Corps, where we're trying to connect with millions of students across the world who've been impacted by COVID this past spring and this school year, closing their schools, and they've got lots of questions. So we're trying to help answer them.
I think what you mentioned there, you touched on the idea of education for COVID-19 and the understanding for children. Can you talk a bit about the work you've done in trying to make sure that we all understand how to sort of stay safe in the pandemic and also understand the virus as well, and how we can access that, perhaps the young people watching it right now?
Absolutely. So, you know, I can speak personally about what happened in Maryland. It was March 13th that schools across the state closed. And it was because, you know, states across the US were starting to go into lockdown phase, and we followed. This was happening in Asia, it happened in Europe and other parts of the world. And all of a sudden, kids who had been going to school every day, seeing their friends, playing sports, worrying about their math tests, all of a sudden their schools were closed and they were home. And as a young person, that must have been incredibly stressful because sort of their normal, ordinary day-to-day activities had been suspended. At the same time, I think all of us were being inundated with news coverage about, you know, case counts and numbers going up and people needing to wear masks and socially distance from each other. We have a lot of people who were personally affected from somebody in their home becoming sick, sometimes somebody in their home losing their lives. And we knew that kids wanted information about COVID and they wanted somebody to explain it to them. And a lot of the early public health campaigns were towards adults, grown up, saying, you know, this is what you should do when you go out, but it wasn't necessarily geared towards young people. So our team here, really under the leadership of one of my colleagues, Dr. Panagis Galatiasatos, we call him Dr. G for short, you know, we said, let's try to develop education for kids and tell them what is the virus and what does it mean and what is coronavirus and what's the biology behind it, and put it into a framework that was understandable for them, but also empowered them to be able to do something about it. So be able to learn, how do you make your own face mask? How do you talk to your friends and your family about keeping yourself safe during the pandemic? And we've launched this both locally in Baltimore as well as in school districts across the US and across the world now, with a great response. Kids get it more than adults a lot of times, and they're excited by this knowledge and they're incredibly curious. And one of the really unique things we do with this curriculum is it's not only that we have, you know, we have slides and lectures where we teach the content to people, but we try to make it really interactive, and everything is communicated with Hopkins health educators who are either physicians or nurses or graduate professional students in public health or education or medicine. So we can connect with students across the world, and they can get to learn more about the healthcare profession as well.
That sounds amazing in what you're doing there as well. In terms of that whole process of getting the knowledge down to an acceptable level for the children to access that, was there anything that surprised you with that at all? Anything that came out like, wow, that was interesting, I didn't expect that, or stand-out moments for you particularly?
I am, you know, I first started thinking about it. We did a lot of community engagement calls at the beginning of the pandemic. I think Hopkins as an institution was very committed to local outreach within Baltimore and making sure that we were checking on the well-being and needs in our community. And we would have these community engagement calls, sometimes with adults and sometimes with kids. And, you know, all of us who work on this teaching core were part of that early group, and we were struck by the sophistication of questions that kids would ask. But also sort of heart-wrenching questions that kids would ask, like, is, you know, somebody in my family going to die from this? And is it okay for me to hug my grandmother? And it really drove it home for us how many questions kids have and how scared they might be right now, and how important it is to empower them. I mean, they are really the ones who have been disproportionately impacted in ways that just unprecedented. So what the other thing that has been surprising and we've really enjoyed is everywhere we've done this curriculum so far, the kids have been amazing, the teachers have been amazing, but the kids have really wanted to take this to the next level. And it's not just, okay, I want to hear about COVID and then we'll go on with my life. They want to learn about it so that they can do something about it. So it's not only just teach me about this, it's teach me about this so I can figure out action plans and things that I can do within my school, within my family, within my community. And seeing kids have that sort of motivation and interest has just been incredibly inspiring.
That's really impressive. And I think you're right. That passion, that desire to learn for young people, the inquiring mind shouldn't be limited. Go on. What do you want to learn? What's next? What's next behind that? Now, you know, we've had a few questions sent in. Doctors in the house right now for the Global Classroom. So we've got some questions for you. The first question I want to put to you from outside of here, that one comes from Austin right here in the UK. And I think I'm going to plug him in now and hopefully hear that question. It's a very precise question about a medical condition, which I think you're pretty good at on that side of it. So, Austin, hopefully you're here somewhere. Let's hear what you have to say.
Hello.
Hi, Austin.
I had plagiocephaly as a child. Had it not been corrected, would it have affected my eyesight?
Hi, Austin. I'm not sure, Mr. Shaw. I think he said he'd had plagiocephaly as a child.
Yes, I'm plagiocephaly. I can just about get it right. It's a complicated word, and I know it's. Thank you for that. I know it's one that you understand very, very well, and obviously a condition there. So perhaps you can answer that question for Austin.
No, it's a great question. And so yes, so plagiocephaly, literally it's sort of a medical term that means a flattened part of your skull. The skull, you know, that sits under the skin on the scalp of your head. And it can happen for a couple different reasons. It usually happens, you know, just as babies are born, because the bones of their skull are still growing and forming so they can be soft. So if you would lie on one side for, you know, months at a time, which can sometimes happen with babies born really early, they can actually get kind of a flat area on their skull. There are treatments for that, including some types of physical therapy and actually helmets for babies. What Austin might be talking about is there's another type of, and again, it's plagiocephaly, and there's a type where you can be born and the bones of your skull have closed in an abnormal way. And that type of plagiocephaly can sometimes impact, it can sometimes be part of a syndrome, which is a collection of different findings, and sometimes that impacts the eye. So if it does, there are different treatments, but it sounds like in Austin's case, he was treated early. So.
Perfect. Thank you for that as well.
You're welcome. Great question.
Then the next question could be a difficult one, but hopefully not too bad. It came in from South America, from Deanne. And they were asking here, do you think we'll ever get rid of COVID-19? I think they're getting fed up of it at the moment. And they're saying, will we ever actually get rid of this?
That's a great question, and one I think all of us are asking every single day now. In the U.S. news, certainly there's been a lot of coverage in the past week about two promising vaccines that have come out through both Pfizer and Moderna, and I think that's giving people a lot of hope that we're going to get to the point within the next 12 months that we're going to have vaccines that are going to be deployed to large percentages of the population. And I think there are other vaccine trials and other vaccines that are developing around the world. Will we, so a vaccine is clearly going to get us to a solution. I would say one of the things, the silver lining of COVID to me is that it has reinforced for us all of these important things that we should be doing anyway. Hand washing, lots of good good hygiene when you are touching doorknobs and elevator buttons and things like that. But it also has, through things like our teaching core, I think inspired probably a whole generation, including many of the people listening to us today, to think about careers in public health and medicine. And the world needs that. And so hopefully we will continue to inspire more people who have been impacted one way or another through this pandemic, that they can help ensure that something like this doesn't happen again.
A wonderful answer. Thank you very much for that. So much about the silver lining and the hope coming out of it as well. I think on our time slot, we're running out of time right now, but I've got to say, Megan, thank you very much for coming in. Amazing. I would encourage the message there that came out about have an inquiring mind. Seek out the resources, go and look for it, understand it yourself. And Megan, I know you've got a busy day. You're actually in the hospital right now, so have a terrific time and please enjoy. But thank you for joining us here in the Global Classroom as well.
It's my pleasure. And Mr. Shaw, I should just say the email address if people are interested in learning more about this curriculum. Let me just spell it out. It's heatcorps.jhu.edu. That's heatcorps@jhu.edu.
Thank you for sharing that. Really important at the end there as well to find out what that is. Brilliant and absolutely wonderful. We're going to take a slight pause in what we're doing right now. And I know in our last episode, we did some exercise and we reflected on how important that is for our bodies and our well-being. Today's slightly different. Today, we're going to invite into the Global Classroom Disney Studios. Thanks to our friends at Disney Studios, I am delighted to introduce our next guest, who will be Michael Woodside. Now, Michael joined the Walt Disney Animation Studios in 2012 as an assistant animator, animating crowd characters from, and I'm sure you know it, Wreck-It Ralph and a small film called Frozen, before being promoted to the full animator status on another amazing film, Big Hero 6, Zootopia, and one of my girls' favourites, Moana. Now, on Frozen 2, Woodside supervised the crowd animation team as well as the characters of Sven, Anna, Elsa's parents, and others. He explains that the crowds also, as well as the main characters, need to support the story but not distract from it. They also help tell the audience how they should feel about a given moment, so very important. Now, Woodside's love of film and stage musicals, instilled by his grandmother and also an influential junior high school teacher, has added to the excitement about working on animated musicals like Frozen. He has brought in several top Broadway stars to exchange ideas with the animation team and to help better understand how to combine stage and musical performances with animation. Before we start this, get your pencils and your paper ready. Frantically search for them, look around there, and I want you all to join in to help us get ready. If you want to, you can share your photos and drawings with the Global Classroom. Recommend you do that with the support of your parents or your guardians. To use the hashtag of the Global Classroom, you can put it towards our Twitter account at the Global Classroom, our Instagram, the.Global Classroom, Facebook, which is at Global Classroom. Now, I think you've got all those ready. Pencils ready, paper ready. Michael, welcome to the Global Classroom.
Hey Jeff, it's great to be here at the Global Classroom. My name is Michael Woodside and I'm an animation supervisor at Walt Disney Animation Studios. And today I'm so excited to teach all of you how to draw my favorite Disney character, Olaf. Let's get started. I'm going to be using two different pencils today. This is going to be my first pencil, just a blue drawing pencil that I can use for my scratchy underdrawing. And then I'll come back later with a black pencil to help finalize the lines. And I like doing it this way because this lighter pencil allows me to be a little bit more loose with my lines. And then once I've made all my decisions, then I can go over with a darker pencil. So to start, let's just warm up our hands. We're going to start drawing some circles on the outside of our page. And when I do the circles, I use my whole arm. And I'm also keeping it really light because we'll kind of make these drawings darker as we go on, but it's a great way to start with really light lines. And Olaf is made of a bunch of really fun round shapes, so it's great to practice with these circles out here on the outside. And I'll show you what I mean. When we go in with a darker pencil line, this helps us define. So if we just say this is where we want to keep it, we can do our cleanup line there, and then maybe another one here. And once we do this, you'll see all those blue lines kind of fade away to the background. And especially if you start adding shading to the drawing, then you don't really see any of this stuff. So let's just shade in this section here, just to show you how that looks. There you go. So let's go ahead and get started with Olaf. I'm going to start drawing him on this side of the sheet of paper. He's going to be looking in this direction, so his carrot's going to be going out here. So I want to leave some room for that. So let's go ahead and just start with our circle on this side. I'm going to draw mine a little darker than you probably will, just to make sure you can see it on the video, but you want to keep this light because we're going to be building in more detail as we go. So this is our circle for the head. Like I said, he's going to be looking in this direction, so the way that we can loosely, lightly indicate that is to do a little rounded line here. And that tells us that the center of his head is kind of facing this direction, so it pulls that way. And then the middle of his head, up and down, we're going to put just below the center of the circle. So if this is the middle, we're going to go about here and just do a straight kind of line. And this will help us know where to put Olaf's eyes when we get there. So let's go ahead and draw his muzzle. So the muzzle of Olaf is the front part of his upper lip, and it's going to be sticking out to the side here. So I'm just going to draw a rounded line coming off of where this middle horizontal line is. Just go out here, kind of make this as big as you like. You can see how sloppy my lines are, that's fine. Animation drawings are usually really messy because drawing is problem solving, and it's never perfect the first time you draw. I know everyone wants it to be perfect, and eventually if you practice, you can get much better at doing a drawing that you're happy with earlier, but it takes a second. So let's go ahead and connect this back into the circle. I'm just going to do kind of a rounded line. We're going to keep it light because we're going to change where this connects, but helps us get it connected to the structure of his skull. And now we can give him his eyebrow. So coming out of this side, I'm just going to draw kind of like a backwards number 7. It connects to the top of the head here and the outside of the circle there. Okay, so now we can draw the bottom of his head, starting about the right here in this section. I'm just going to draw a rounded line that goes out here really lightly and then round it out again. This is going to be where his neck is, and then that connects to the back here. So the back of his head, I'm just going to start here on the top of the circle and kind of draw a line down and then back around. So this side and the back is more rounded than the front side here. Okay, so now we have a really rough version of Olaf's head. Let's go ahead and start building out some of the details. This is the fun part. So what we're going to do is take, we're going to start with the tooth, because that'll help us kind of make sure we're got the right guy here. So starting from inside the lip here, I'm going to draw what looks like a letter U, but it's more boxy. If a letter U is round like that, what we're looking for is something like this. So build that over here. And this is a great sheet of paper section where you can do some practice lines, right? If you want to practice the tooth before you draw it, this is a great way to do that. And to give the tooth some dimensionality, remember he's looking in this direction. I'm just going to, inside of where we drew that outside of the U, I'm just going to draw another little line here, kind of rounded, and that looks like the side of the tooth. So that helps us even more so see the dimensionality of his face. Okay. So we're going to open his mouth, and to do that, I'm just going to draw a letter U that starts inside here. That's going to be his bottom lip, and then it connects all the way back up here to the bottom of the circle. See right here where this top lip meets the bottom of the circle? That's a great way to know where to stop. Real loose and scratchy. I hope your drawing is loose. The more scratchy it is, the more like an animator drawing it feels like, because you don't want to be doing perfect lines yet. In fact, there's a whole department who works at Disney Animation called Cleanup Animation, and what they do is they take the final animation drawings and add the clean lines on top of it. So that's a different artist who's doing those lines. Animators like me are just doing the poses to help sell the emotions of the character. So now we're just going to draw the corner of the mouth. So going outside, we're going to cut them into the circle a little bit, like a little rounded line up like that, and it stops before it meets the middle line. And then from here, we're just going to do a little curvy U, upside down U, and a little cheek line. Look at that. Look at that happy guy. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put the eyes in place. So if we were to see Olaf from the front, both of his eyes would be the same size. They would be these ovals. But since we're turning him this direction, one eye on the left is going to be just smaller than the eye on the right, because the eye on the right is closer to us. So that's a good place to practice these two, just oval like that, and then a bigger oval. So starting here in the middle line, I'm just going to draw an oval going up here. So that's one eye. And then I'm keeping track of the distance between the side of the eye and the center line. And I want to try to keep it pretty similar on the other side, just to make sure that they feel like they're the same distance away from the center of his face. This is the bigger eye on this side. See how this one is bigger? Okay, so like I said, we're going to round off this section. I'm going to go ahead and start that now, just sort of soften the edges out a little bit. Once we darken it, you're never even going to see this part. It'll be our little secret. And now from here, I'd like to draw his eyebrows. So his eyebrows are these little sticks, and the sticks stick out in front of his snow here. So since everything else is rounded, to make the sticks feel different, I'm just going to draw them more straight. So to draw his eyebrow, I'm going to draw a straight line over here, straight line down, and then a straight line back. And we'll just leave it like that for a second. And then from the outside, I'm just going to draw a straight line out to the side and then here. So I'll color it in with a blue just so you can see the shape now, but we'll color it in again with black later. And that looks like little stick eyebrows. And then we'll do that on the other eye. Straight, straight. Color that in for you. Okay, so we have the rounded eye here. He's got a little bit of a bump on the top of his head where the sticks are going to come out, so I'm just going to add a little bump right there. And Olaf has 3 sticks out of the top of his head. And the middle one is the longest, so we're going to start with that one so that we know how long it should be. So I'm just going to do kind of a curved line out here. And then up towards the top, there's another little stick point right there. So that's one stick. And now the second one we'll put out here. This one points out the other direction, so we're just going to round it out here. Another little stick point that comes off of it. And then this one is the short one. We're just going to have it go the other direction. So it's not as long as those. And then it has another little stick that goes up like that. So these are fun shapes. You can practice them and then get really good at them later. Okay, so I think to do the nose, I'm going to use a different pencil just so we can see it separately. So to build out the nose, I'm going to draw right about here a circle really lightly, and this is just going to be where the nose connects into his snow. And then coming out from there, I'm going to draw a straight line that connects to the bottom of the circle and just goes out past the upper lip, like that. And then another one that goes to the top of the circle here. So his carrot has this fun shape where it's actually a little thicker the closer you get to the face. So this is the thin part. I'm just going to build up the carrot here, go up away from that line that we drew, and then connect back into the circle. See how we're pulling away from this triangle? And that just gives it some fun shape. Again, Olaf is made of all these different little parts, pieces of snow and carrots, and they're all different shapes. So even if your carrot looks a little different, it probably still looks just like Olaf. When the first Frozen came out, I was a crowds animator on the film, and that meant that I got to animate the background characters in the scenes in Arendelle, some of the trolls. It was so much fun. And actually, for Frozen 2, I got to be an animation supervisor who got to supervise the animators who were coming on to animate the crowds. So that was a fun full circle journey. Really proud of the crowds in Frozen 2, and I think Olaf makes a lot of friends from the people in the town, so there's fun to revisit that world. So sort of getting ahead of his eyes here, I just like to show you this little trick that we do. Sometimes if you just darken the top part of the circle for the eyeball, it will feel like eyelashes. And Olaf doesn't really have really long flowing eyelashes, so we don't want to draw the lines that come off. But just darkening that part helps us see that he's got eyelashes up there. Cute. Okay, so now the one main part that we're missing is the eyeballs. So his eyeballs are just little ovals that happen inside. So I'm just going to build that out now. I'm going to put his a little, I think he's fun when he's a little cross-eyed, so I'm going to do that here. And we're going to leave a little space for a highlight. So I'm going to just color in a little circle there. And that'll be an area that we don't color in. So I'll show you what I mean. We're going to color it in black again, but cute. Okay, so let's go ahead and start finishing our drawing. So I have this black pencil, and we're going to just go outline the areas that we like. And I'm right-handed, so I like starting in the left part of the drawing so that I don't smudge it. So if you're left-handed, start on the left side and move over. That way you don't smudge the lines. But now we're just cleaning up the edges. Add these little rounded lines to help give the carrot some detail. There's a lot of people who think they can't draw, that they don't know how to do it, and no, very few people know how to draw instinctually. There's always something to be learned. Even professional artists feel like they have something to learn all the time. And so if you're even at all barely interested in drawing, you probably are capable of becoming a professional artist because you're interested in learning how. And I think that's the coolest thing about this art form, is that you're surrounded by people who want to get better and want to do a cool thing in order to bring something nice out into the world and bring these characters to life. So if that sounds like something you want to do, you should. I always wanted to be a Disney animator when I was growing up, and it's crazy that I get to do that now, and it's so cool that I get to teach you how to draw Olaf. He is probably my favorite Disney character, because I think he represents the best in us, the warmth. Just a nice guy, he's funny. So you see how when we color in everything except for those highlights, it starts to feel like he's got a little shine in his soul. Really nice guy. If you were a bad guy, if you were mean, we probably wouldn't leave that highlight in there. Start working our way down. nice way about drawing this style too, where you draw it first in blue and then you draw it over again, is that you're sort of drawing it twice, and that teaches you how to sort of remember those shapes that you're drawing so that you can draw them again. Now, animation happens 24 frames per second. So when you see a cartoon, that means if it was drawn, that's 24 drawings every second, which is so many drawings. But that gives you an indication as to why some professional animators know how to draw these characters so well, is because they draw them so much. Think of how many seconds are in an hour. Oh, I forgot to do the sticks. Can't forget the sticks. So the sticks are kind of rough, so you don't have to do really straight lines. It's actually probably better if you do really curvy lines. So if you're nervous and you're shaking, you're going to do great on these sticks. Now, I hope you finish the drawing, because sometimes it can be stressful to do a drawing and you feel like it needs to be perfect and you want to give up halfway through because it doesn't look right. But you'll see that the more you draw, the more you just give yourself time to make the mistakes that you need in order to learn. Every time I make a mistake, I sort of log it away and think, oh, that's something I know for next time. So mistakes aren't bad, they're good things. They help you draw better. And I'm just going to color in his mouth, the blue here, just to help set it back in space. If you want a trick to, you can color dark back here, and that makes it shaded. Feels like it's even further away. And then last, I'll just color in his nose. When I color in too, I like to color in the same direction, so you see that I'm not switching the direction of the pencil. I try to keep it consistent so that everything feels like it's made out of the same material. First, it's a carrot. A couple lines, sort of little details. That is our Olaf. So the last thing you got to do, everyone has to do this, be sure to sign your drawing. I'm going to sign mine right here. Put your name, let everyone know that you're proud of it. And there you go. Well, I hope you enjoyed drawing Olaf as much as I did. I'd like to now hand it back over to Jeff at the Scarsburg Hall School. Jeff?
Michael, thank you for that. Now, I've got to confess, I got partway through that, and I wouldn't say mine was the best, but if you think you've got one there to share, sign it, get it ready, and please put it out there on the hashtag The Global Classroom, on the Twitter accounts, or even send it into your own school and share it. Be proud of it, put it up somewhere, and it's wonderful to take time and to relax and to do something different like art and drawing, to take our minds off things and have a bit of space to think about things. So Woody, thank you for doing that. We really appreciated our friends at Disney Studios for sharing that with us, and hopefully we'll see some more characters as we go through the next episodes that we have. Back here in Scarisbrick Hall, we're now going to invite our next guest in very, very shortly. As you may well know, earlier this year, Captain Sir Tom Moore set out to do 100 laps of his garden. He hoped to raise, I think, £1,000 for NHS charities to show his appreciation for healthcare staff putting their lives on the line for all of us. And I know that we all around the world appreciate our healthcare teams who really have taken us through a very difficult time in this pandemic. And by lap 100, he had inspired a nation, not just his family, and is raising 38.9 million, becoming a beacon of hope in dark times. And what an impact he had just by walking. Now, the coronavirus continues to cause so much uncertainty, I know, for many of you, and you do write into us about that and the worries that you have and the strain that it has with that. And you see, Captain Sir Tom and his family are not standing still. Their new mission is to bring people together, to combat loneliness and to improve everyone's mental health, and we certainly stand by that as well. Captain Sir Tom has passed the baton on to all of us, and I guess the question is, will you take it up? Now, we're delighted to share that story with you today and to invite into the classroom Hannah Ingram-Moore. Hannah is the youngest of two daughters and spent her childhood with her sister Lucy, mother Pamela, and of course, father Tom. She studied English and started a career as a European retail operations. Hannah has a really successful managing director and workplace strategist with her own company, Matrix Group, which she co-founded with her husband, Colin, over 13 years ago. Over the last 20 years, Hannah has helped iconic businesses and brands of all sizes, terrific success in the UK and overseas. Hannah and her family have been honoured to be part of the global phenomenon that has become the fundraising by her father and is amazing. Little did they know that a simple gesture of her family sponsoring Tom to walk around the garden would lead to this amazing generation of 38 million being given to NHS charities together, and the subsequent creation of a real legacy that is the Captain Tom Foundation. Now, I'm talking a lot about Hannah first of all, but let's hear a quick message from the man himself to introduce her.
I'm Captain Sir Tom Moore. I'd like to introduce my daughter Hannah, who's talking on behalf of both of us.
So first of all, Hannah, can you hear me? And are we okay with you?
I certainly can. Yes, I'm here.
Hannah, it's a great privilege to have you here speaking on behalf of your father as well. And the story has certainly warmed our hearts around the world. And we're obviously beaming out to many children right now. I've been inspired by the story, and I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us in what we're doing. One of our themes in the classroom today is about keeping connected to our relatives, which has been difficult throughout COVID because many people have been told to stay away from people for the right reasons and crossing generations. I know that's very important to you. What do you think about the need of doing that and the importance of that right now?
It's a great question. I think for us, we feel incredibly lucky. My father moved in with myself, my husband and our family nearly 13 years ago after my mother had sadly died. And we simply didn't want to leave him alone as a man in his 80s as a widower. So he joined us in an incredibly vibrant family with 2 young children. And there is no question in my mind that he became repurposed again. He has a shed with Grandpa's Fix-It shed on it. The children see him as an absolutely integrated part of our family. And something I think to all of you children listening, Captain Sir Tom, my father, loves children. He's totally invested in you. He believes that you can be whatever you want to be. He says often, the world is your oyster. Go out and open it, because something really important happens in our house. We talk a lot about mentoring, and you think as a child, oh, that must mean that someone older and wiser is the mentor. That is definitely not the case. There is upward and downward mentoring. It's called reciprocal mentoring. You, the youth, the children, you have so much to teach the older people, and the older people have so much to teach you. And that is what is alive and kicking in our household. And in honesty, that is why Captain Sir Tom was able to share that story. We were able to share this story of hope, that beacon of hope around the world, because he was surrounded by his family, and we were able to talk to all those different generations, and all of the generations matter. We must take care of everybody.
I think that has been a theme running through this, for even the youngest people in Kenya coming online, so we must keep that connection and what it gives. And you're right, that idea of repurposing, that energized, being part of that family group there and sharing with it, I think is amazing. Okay, but I do know that loneliness is a real issue. It's a serious issue for a lot of people, especially the elderly. So how do you think we can combat loneliness and separation in what is a really challenging time?
And again, thank you. I think the reason why combating loneliness is a key pillar for our foundation is because we've experienced it firsthand. And very quickly to say that my mother was in a home for 7 years and she was there by herself. My father visited her every day. But what we recognized as a family is that not only was she lonely, other people within the home were also lonely. And the people visiting the sick went home to a house by themselves. Loneliness is a blight on all of our nations, and we're all responsible to combat it. And combating loneliness, just imagine if you walk with Tom, #walk with Tom. You know, in the UK right now, we can only walk with one other person outside, but you can smile at your neighbours. You could put a post-it note through their letterbox. You can call them. You can send them a text message, a WhatsApp. I think it is incumbent on all of us to look around and look for the lonely. Often you might not think they're lonely. We talked to one woman who lived with in a house with her husband and her baby, but she was a paraplegic, and she said she loved her family. She was so happy, but she often had times of immense loneliness. We own loneliness for all of humanity. We must come together, recognize loneliness, just reach out, wave, smile, put a post-it note through the door, do anything you can to support everyone else.
But that sounds like a call to arms for the children around the world in some ways, that we can actually make a difference. And I know we're talking to millions and millions of people around the world in different countries. I know we're using different languages right now that are translating immediately as well. So take that on board. I know if we make one ripple effect here and we take it on board, maybe a school takes on a mission of, we're going to make sure we connect with people this Christmas time and send those messages out, send a card into somebody's in a home perhaps and support them and let them know that we're thinking of them, that they matter and they can make a difference no matter what age you are. Now, your father, let's be honest here, has inspired hope and positivity in a really difficult time, and it's an amazing story to go through. It told us no matter what age you are, you really can do something and you really can make a difference. Extraordinary stuff. I've got to ask the question, what's kind of next for him and what you're doing right now? What's around the corner?
Well, of course, the last 8 months have been an incredible journey. And what I have to tell you to all of the children watching, we're just an ordinary family. We're just like you. We shared an incredible story that we thought was our incredible short story, and we shared it with the world, and the world wanted to join in. It was one small step. Just imagine what you can do. And for Captain Sir Tom, my father, what he says now is he's 100.5, so he can't keep walking every day, but you can walk for him. We want to create an army of hope, Captain Tom's Army of Hope. Hashtag walk with Tom. Post your pictures of walking, but post your pictures of smiling at somebody, of waving at somebody, of putting a post-it note through somebody's door. Share images from all around the world. We want to see them. Hashtag walk with Tom and show Captain Tom that you are part of his army of hope, combating loneliness.
I think that's a real challenge to take up there. And before I go to my next question, I know that we've got a little clip that talks about that message as well. And I'm wondering now if the team behind me can sort of bring that up to have a look at that and just see that quick message before we go into our next question.
I'd like to introduce you to the Captain Tom Foundation. We're inspiring hope where it's needed most. We've not finished by a long chalk. Join me on my next step.
That's a brilliant message and a great call to arms. Now, so here we go. We've got around the world now. We believe it's going to reach around 26 million engagements and visits from around the world from different ages of children, right from 8 up to 18 and beyond. We do know there's families watching right now. We're getting messages come in. You've mentioned about Walk with Tom. What's that key message to give to these children around the world when they watch this? Children,
become part of Captain Sir Tom's Walk of Hope. Be his army of hope. We can do this together. Show us your pictures, hashtag, anyway, Google it, hashtag walk with Tom and post your pictures of walking and talking. You're talking to help others. You're walking for yourself. We're combating loneliness together. It's an incredible thing to do. We believe that we are now working with London Marathon events that we can create with your help, all of your help. We need you to become part of Captain Tom's army, walking for hope and combating loneliness. We think this can be the biggest humanitarian walk for hope globally that's ever existed. You start it. You come with us. We can make this something sensational. It will impact you everywhere. Walking for hope, walking to combat loneliness in your own countries, in your own communities. You can do it. Just follow Captain Tom. One small step.
Brilliant. Wonderful. And we all know that when we share positivity, it's great for our well-being as well. I'm really sorry, obviously, we couldn't see your father present today, but I've got to say, you speak on his behalf, an amazing sort of story and staying with us on this side of it. Can you take a message to him on behalf of the Global Classroom and say that all the children, on behalf of all the children watch today, we say thank you for him being inspiring. Thank you for that message of hope, and thank you to your whole family for taking that torch up and that legacy and carrying this forward. I think there's a long way to go with this. and what's happening, and we will carry on to put that message out to all the children and amplify that as well. I really can't thank you enough, Hannah, for taking time to spend with us today, and we do hope that that journey goes so well. I will certainly hashtag out there and put the message out that I know that when I walk out in my local community at the weekend, I will see things differently and act differently. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the children watching and to everyone who's been before me. It's been amazing, and I drew Olaf.
Oh, fantastic. Send it in to us. We want to see that. Okay. If you send yours in, I'll send mine in, and I bet yours. Oh, let's see. If you see for a second, let's pull your camera up. Let's have a look. Actually, you know what? That's pretty good. I'll be honest.
Terrible. Totally terrible.
No, it's not. It's not. Okay. When I was very, very young, my art teacher told me I couldn't draw, and I believed that. It wasn't true. I've got to tell you now, as a headmaster, I'm giving you a house point. Okay. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll take
well
it.
done, okay?
Thank you.
Brilliant. So thank you. Keep sharing that hope, keep sharing that journey, and hopefully we'll be involved again on that story as it evolves. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful story of hope, a wonderful story about making sure our generations stay together. And I've got to say, actually, that message of get out there, wave, hashtag walk with Tom, see somebody, put a smile towards somebody. If you know somebody is going to be alone at Christmas time this year, let's write that note, put it out there, put it through the door. You honestly, that impact is huge, and it creates a ripple effect, and it spreads joy, and you will feel better by doing it. So no matter what age you are, be proactive, stay connected. If you're there tonight, Zoom your grandparents, have a chat to them, get involved, and encourage them. It's an amazing message. So we've had a great journey so far. We've been around to Kenya, different places of the world. We brought in people talking from around the world as well. Some amazing stuff. Our next guest is really interesting, okay? And we had a great discussion last week about this one. I'm going to talk to you now about a man called Christopher McDougall. Now, Chris covered wars in Rwanda and Angola as a foreign correspondent for the Associated Press before writing his best-selling book. You may have heard of it, Born to Run. I've read it, an inspiring book, and it makes you want to get out there and take action and do something. His fascination with the limits of human potential led him to create the Outside magazine web series, Art of the Hero. His most recent book, which I also have read, and actually got to say, I couldn't put it down, was Running with Sherman. And we'll talk more about that in a second, explain more about that, how a rescue donkey inspired what's described as a ragtag gang of runners, and I presume that includes Chris in there, to enter the craziest race in America. So you can tell this is going to be a really interesting one. He currently lives, well, he was living with his wife and two daughters and a farmyard menagerie in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. But today, I think I'm right in this one, he's going to be beaming in from Hawaii, and we're not at all jealous of that. So before we crack on with some questions, let's make sure we're here first of all. Chris, how are you?
I am fantastic. Jeff, how are you holding up? It's been a long day for you.
Yeah, we're doing good. It's the evening time over here in the UK. It's a bit cold, it's a bit chilly, but we've warmed ourselves up with drawing some Olaf pictures. We've heard about an amazing story as well about the Captain Sir Tom Foundation. Amazing stuff on there. And actually, I'm looking forward to this chat with you, I'll be honest. So I know, what time is it down in Hawaii, Chris?
Oh, it's way too early. It's not so bad. Look at me complaining. It's almost 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Now, I know we got some questions, but actually, we had a question sent in, which was amazing. And it came in asking a direct question with you, okay? And if it's okay, I've got a question from Malawi that came in, and it's actually about donkeys, believe it or not, okay? So if we can get the clip right now, I'm going to kick off with this question and just see if you can answer it first of all. So let's go and get our extract from Malawi first of all, and a very excited lady as well to talk to you as well, Evan.
Everybody, my name is Evan. I go to St. Andrews International Primary School. And my question for you, Chris, is what was your first donkey's name and why was it a donkey? Bye.
Great question.
Well, first of all, whatever she's doing it right. Like, how much joy is she having swimming on that little rope? So my first donkey, first of all, my first donkey was an accident. We never planned to have a donkey, and we only got one because one day my daughters and I and my wife were out hiking in the woods, and we heard this noise behind us, and we turn around, and we see this woman riding up a trail on the back of a donkey with a saddle. And I'd never seen that before. I didn't know people could actually ride on donkeys. So she hopped off, and she began chatting with us, and her name was Tanya. and she had some donkeys in her backyard that she used to take out and ride on trails. So the rest of us, you know, we had some fun. We petted the donkey, and then we forgot about it. But not my daughter. So my 9-year-old daughter, I think, sort of planted it inside of her brain that someday maybe she could have her own donkey. And that someday arrived pretty soon because her 10th birthday showed up. We said, "Hey, Sophie, what do you want for your birthday?" And she says, "A donkey." And I kind of figured out why, because if you look at horses, you know, horses are kind of huge, but donkeys, as you can see, are kind of like kid size. They're like little miniature horses. So, you know, at first we thought, this is a ridiculous idea. But then the idea started to kind of play around in our brains, and we realized that we live on a little farm out in rural Pennsylvania. Maybe we can get a donkey. We asked around, and we found out there was actually a donkey locked in a stall. The owner was a hoarder who kept animals locked up and wouldn't let them outside. And we went to him, and basically we persuaded this hoarder to let us have that donkey. And we named that donkey Sherman. And we picked that name because the Sherman brothers were the guys who wrote all of the songs for Mary Poppins, all those really cool, inspiring, uplifting songs. And we thought, you know what? Whoever these guys are, these Sherman brothers, they seem to bring joy into people's lives. This donkey is bringing joy into our lives. He became Sherman.
Well, that's a good starting question, and you're absolutely right. The energy of that swing, I wish I was kind of like that and jumping around and doing that. So really amazing stuff. Let's talk a bit about your own journey. So we've got somebody going from runner to running with donkeys. Okay. So what made you take on these challenges from sort of extreme running and to actually getting to being running with donkeys? So you got the donkey, but you know, who does this sort of stuff?
So you skipped the first step, which was non-runner. I was not a runner when all these adventures started. I was a guy who was constantly told to not be a runner. Just like you were saying, Mr. Shaw, that you had a teacher tell you, you know, you're a terrible drawer, right? You're not good at art. And it kind of kills your inspiration and momentum. I was kind of the same way. I mean, if I stood up right now, you'd realize I am like the size of a Disney character. I'm roughly the dimensions of Shrek. And so whenever I would try to run, I felt slow. I didn't feel good at it. And I was always getting injured. And I would go to see doctors, and they would say, well, of course you're hurt. Look at the size of you. You're the size of a refrigerator. Like, guys your size shouldn't run. And I believed them. And then one day, I heard about a group in Mexico called the Tarahumara. And this is an indigenous culture where guys my size and bigger, men, women, kids, old people almost Captain Tom's age, are out running. And I thought, all right, if these guys are doing it, why can't I? And that's usually all it takes in life, right? If you see one other person who's like you and they're doing what you want to do, it shows you, why not? If that person can do it, why not me? And that's how I started to run. And once I started to run, all those years where I thought, it's not right for me, I'm too big, it's not good, were gone. And I started to really enjoy it. And to me, that became the secret of everything, is that once you show up at the starting line, you're almost at the finish line. Show up and try. So I became a runner thanks to the inspiration of that tribe, the Tarahumara. And it became my fun time. It became my recess. So when I'm sitting at my desk and I'm supposed to be working and I'm getting sick of it, I just go outside for a run and everything kind of lightens up. Now, the situation with the donkey. So we have Sherman. Sherman is dangerously sick. He'd been locked in a stall for years. Our good friend Tanya, who we had first seen riding her donkey in the woods, said, you know, every creature needs a purpose. Every creature, when they wake up in the morning and they open their eyes, have got to have that one thing they're looking forward to. For this donkey, you've got to find that purpose. I had no idea, like, what kind of purpose do you find for a donkey? And I started to think, well, I enjoy running. Maybe the donkey will enjoy running. And so I thought, if I want to get this creature out every day, maybe he and I can do something together. Maybe I can make him my running partner. And then I learned, like, the secret of life. And this, Mr. Shaw, will help everybody in everything they pursue with another person. And here's the secret of turning a donkey into a running partner. And the secret is this. Anything you want to do with a donkey, you got to make the donkey think it was his idea. And that's what worked for us. We took Sherman out and we would surround him with his friends. There was a goat named Lawrence that Sherman loved, and Lawrence loved to run around. You turn Lawrence the goat loose, and Lawrence is heading over to the next county. So we would put Lawrence on a leash and take him out into the road. And as soon as Sherman saw that Lawrence was going, Sherman would follow him. And that became the secret. We just started to surround Sherman with other animals that he wanted to run with, and he was off to the races.
Wow. So stories about life there as well, and life experiences and learning how to work with people. Very, very interesting. Now, when I went through the book, it wasn't just about rescuing Sherman for me. Yes, it was. I got that part of the journey as well, but a bit about a fellowship, bond of friendship, journey about love, understanding, kindness. And my idea was that everyone seemed to grow on the journey, and everyone seemed to learn from each other, not just Sherman learning. So can you share about how it changed you on that journey, and what changed in your character, or and what do you sort of progress into on that journey working with Sherman?
You know, here's the thing about me, and hopefully maybe most people, but I feel like I keep learning the same lessons over and over again. Like I learn it, it gets into my head. I feel like, oh, I'll never forget this. And then I forget it, and then I've got to learn it all over again. And the big lesson I learned from working on my book, Born to Run, when I was with the Tarahumara in Mexico, learning how this indigenous culture could run long distances, the big key message was, the big revelation for me was, they're having fun. Just like Ava on her rope swing. I don't know what else is going on in her life at that moment, but she's having some fun. And what the Tarahumara had done was they'd taken an activity that unfortunately most of us associate with suffering. You know, you tell someone, go out and run 5 miles, your first thought is, oh, that's not going to be fun. But the Tarahumara had turned it into, and the secret of turning it into fun is don't do it by yourself. So a lot of us, when we go out to run, we go out by ourselves, we put our AirPods or our headphones on, we turn on a watch, and we're focused on our own discomfort. What the Tarahumara do is they always go out as a group. So you would never see a Tarahumara running by him or herself. They would always have 4 or 5 people, and they're chatting and they're having a good time. And when you do that, the miles just kind of vanish. I had learned that lesson when I was researching Born to Run. And then, of course, I got distracted and I forgot about it. What I started to discover, once again, running with Sherman, is, again, if you try to force a donkey to do anything, I guarantee you, you will lose. The donkey is more stubborn than you are. What we learned was by surrounding Sherman with his friends, he began to enjoy the run. And that became this life lesson that sank in for me too. Anything you want to do, surround yourself first. Get some amigos on board. Get your family on board. You'll be surprised at how much more pleasant it is, how many more ideas start to circulate. And that's what sort of pounded through my head, hopefully for the last time I don't forget, is surround yourself with friends.
That's a good message, actually. I think we just talked about sort of loneliness being an issue. So that collegiality, that fellowship, that journey together, obviously inspiring. Now, in the book, you deal with issues about really mental well-being, fear and doubt in certain times. What advice or a particular story would you have about dealing with those kind of issues?
Wow, fear and doubt. I think fear and doubt could be the title of my autobiography, because, you know, when I was a kid in school, I really hated school. I didn't know why. I found out many years later, I was at this conference at Harvard University, and I'm very honored to be there. And it's going to be me and 2 scientists. One of them is a psychiatrist at Harvard Medical School. And I'm just so tickled to be at this conference. And just before we go on stage, I am chatting with the psychiatrist from Harvard Medical School. And he kind of like pats me on the shoulder. And he says, yeah, I can imagine school was probably very difficult for you, you know, of course, because of your attention deficiency disorder. And I'm looking at this guy thinking, I'm not ADHD. And he says, yeah, you are. And in that moment, you know, I was like 40 years old at the time. In that moment, my first reaction was, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And my second reaction was, oh my God, my life suddenly makes sense now. All those years I was getting in trouble in school. It's just because I didn't want to sit down. I didn't want to be in my place. And once I understood that, all that animosity, all that sort of discomfort with school kind of made sense. It wasn't like I was a bad kid. It's just that I was, you know, a little hyper-juiced. And so I look back at my school years, and all that fear and doubt just came from the fact that I was a creature that did not want to be in that cage at that moment. And looking back over time, I think what has led me all my life is when those times arrive when you feel like you don't fit in, you're fine. You just got to find that other avenue, that thing that actually makes you happy. And what got me through school was because I couldn't sit down, I kind of self-medicated. I self-medicated by reading. I would take books that I liked, like Watership Down or The Once and Future King, and I would get multiple copies. I would go to the library and get 4 copies of the same book because I would read it under my desk. And when I got caught, the teacher would take it away and I just pull out the next one and just pick up where I left off. And so for me, fear and doubt became conquered by just understanding that there's always something out there that's going to make you feel good. And whatever kind of energies or talents you have, you just got to find a path where you are productive.
That's quite an important message, of course. So, I mean, obviously, you were the kid on the corridor being told off then at school.
I was in the corridor so much, I could actually leave school, go to a local pharmacy, read comic books, get a cherry soda, and come back, and nobody even knew I left the school.
Now, of course, as a headmaster, I can't, of course, condone that. But I've got to say, what is great is actually the message you're saying there about saying, actually, don't feel you have to be a certain way. Find that spark within you, that energy within you, and then go with that, you know. And I think you're reading books on the table is amazing, you know, that you want that thirst for knowledge was there. And then you've gone from this character who didn't quite get schooled to being, you know, a best-selling author, making a difference here in the global classroom to millions of children. So you've now become an example, you know, of inspiration to people. And there may be a child out there right now who thinks, I don't quite fit into this situation over here. And that message you just said was really, really important. And I think will actually hit home to a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that on that journey as well. One thing that I can't sort of not touch on is clearly the human-animal connection part of the book, and the messages from that. Talking about well-being and, you know, perhaps how we've always been. So could you perhaps share your thoughts about this sort of human-animal connection and the magic behind that?
This was, again, a surprise to me. I grew up in a city. I grew up in the city of Philadelphia. I worked overseas in Portugal and in Spain and in Africa. I was never in a rural environment before. I had never been on a farm until we moved to one in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Almost all of our neighbors there are Amish farmers, and they all have this great communion with their animals. That was my first introduction to working with animals. What I found is you develop such patience and affection that it starts to infiltrate your entire life. What happened with us was kind of a strange COVID story. Where we lived was so remote and so rural. We were about 50 kilometers away from the nearest hospital. All of our neighbors are Amish. They don't drive cars. They don't have telephones. And so we became very concerned during the pandemic that if something should happen in our area, we would be completely isolated. So what we decided to do very abruptly was to rehome all of our animals, give them to friends, sell our home there, and then move back to my wife's home in Hawaii, which is how suddenly, after 20 years in Pennsylvania, I look around and I find myself here, kind of shockingly. It was a difficult transition. And the very first thing we did, we had 14 days of in-house quarantine. The first morning that the quarantine ended, we went right to the Humane Society and we adopted a cat. What we've always found is that, you know, humans have this connection with creatures that way predates our own conscious history. Back in prehistoric times, animals were our first allies, and we used to rely on them. Cats and dogs, these feral creatures that we domesticated, we used to rely on them as our early warning systems, as our defenses, as our hunting partners. Animals have much sharper hearing and vision and smell than we have. So if you adopted a cat back in the Stone Age when you were living in a cave, if that cat got nervous, you knew that something was out there. And also, if that cat was calm and sleeping, you knew that all was well in your environment, in your perimeter, and you could rest. And I believe that still exists today with us, our connection with animals. There's something to be gained from also getting outside of yourself, your own concerns and worries, and focusing on another creature that can't speak to you.
And that's really interesting. That sort of deep connection there, deeper than just, going back generations, it really is. And I think in some ways you're right. Maybe we've lost that connection. I mean, to get back to that, I think will enhance our well-being into a more natural state of how we operate as well. So really, really, thanks for sharing that. I want to try and bring in people now from Gibraltar. I've got something called JJ, who wants to ask you a question a bit about your strength and resilience, I think. So let's try and pull up in a second, JJ. Now, JJ's in Gibraltar. He's got a question for you. I think he's looking pretty smart on that side of it. Let's hear from him.
My name is JJ, and I'm from Park Park School, Gibraltar. Hi, Chris. Where would you say your strength and resilience comes from? And what advice would you give to children struggling today?
That's a great question. Here's what I would say to JJ and to everybody else. I think we always look at everybody else and think that they're stronger than we are, they're braver than we are, they're tougher than we are, and they're really not. The only difference between what they're doing and the doubts we feel is often people just have a little more experience. They've been in a tough situation before. And so when they come up against something that they feel they can't handle, it's not that they're tougher. They just know they've been through this before and they're going to come out the other end. And to me, that ultimately is what the real benefit of athletics is all about. It's a nice dress rehearsal for tough times. You get into a race, you feel super tired, you don't think you can be able to finish. You're playing a football match, you get kicked in the knee, your knee hurts, you don't think you'll be able to finish the match. All these things happen, and then you do finish, and you tuck it away in the back of your mind, and you think, okay, you know what? I doubted myself. And then what happens in the future is you come across other tough times, and you remember there was that 5K race I ran. I was so tired, but I got to the finish line. If I can do that, I can handle this. And I think during this pandemic, if there's one thing we can take away from this, we all think this is the worst time in our lives right now. But unfortunately, I promise you, especially for kids, you're going to come across worse times. Things are going to happen over the next 30, 40 years in your life that are going to be very, very difficult. And the one benefit of this experience we're going through right now is tuck it away in your brain. And 20 years from now, when you're going through something very difficult, remember, you know what? I made it through this pandemic and I was okay. I made friends. I stayed in touch with my grandparents. I got through that. I can get through this. So hopefully this will be the one benefit, the glass half full of this experience is we all learn that we can endure and we can triumph and we can move on to the next thing.
Great answer, Chris. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And so JJ, take that on board. Important message, certainly. The next question I've got for you is coming in again, actually from the UK. We've got one from Zach in a second. Now, Zach is somebody who I think may be a keen runner. I don't know on that side of it, but he's specifically going towards, I think, a story about your Born to Run book. Okay, so let's try and pull Zach up now and see how this question comes in.
What led you to question, why does my foot hurt? And how did this lead you to discover the secrets of the tribe of Indians in Mexico's Copper Canyons?
Zach and JJ are making me feel very underdressed. I think I should put on more than a Running with Sherman t-shirt this morning. So that's a great question. I think that all of us spend most of our time, no matter what we're doing, really telling our own stories, particularly as writers. We think we're writing a biography of Lord Wellington or Benjamin Franklin. And what we're really doing is examining our own lives. And we're comparing what we're doing with what other people have done in the past. And for me, that became the whole story of Born to Run was I've been told I can't run. It's going to hurt me, that running is bad for the body. And I see other people who can run. And so if you look at the narrative of Born to Run, it's an adventure story that is almost all about other people. It's about the Tarahumara. It's about this crazy group of ultra distance runners who go down to have a race with them. But to me, secretly, the book is about the fact of I was told I can't run and I keep getting hurt. And what's the difference between me and them? And really, I think almost every book that a kid is going to read their entire lives, secretly, that's what the author's doing. They're actually looking at the person they're writing about and saying, what's different about Napoleon than me? And comparing themselves secretly to the person they're writing about. And that's what it was all about for me. Why does my foot hurt? And this 80-year-old guy run up a mountain, his foot doesn't hurt. If I can answer that question, I've got something interesting.
I'd love to have been there with you, Chris, and seeing these people running up the hills at that age, an inspiration. It must tell you something about that society and how their values must be, and also their well-being must be as well, and that encouragement to get that age and still run. It's incredible, isn't it?
It is and it isn't. It's incredible today because unfortunately we've taken our greatest natural ability as human animals, which is running. We are actually the best distance runners on the planet. No other creature can run long distances as well as humans. You may think, horses or dogs or cheetahs, they're fast, but they don't go very well long. You look at a horse after it's run a mile, and that horse is panting and it's sweating. Humans run 26 miles routinely. So I think, unfortunately, we have allowed ourselves to believe that we're not as strong as we think we are. We're actually much stronger and more resilient than we give ourselves credit for.
Thanks for that. I think it's an important message as well, because don't be limited. Think big on that side of it. Now, there are millions of children around the world watching this broadcast. And so the key message I ask our guests before in the kind of final question is, Chris, they're all watching this, different countries around the world, different translations around the world. What is the message from Chris McDougall you're going to pass out to those children right now in this moment?
So every year in Colorado, there's this race called the Leadville 100. It's a 100-mile race high in the mountains at 12,000 feet. It's super hard. It's ridiculously hard. And yet every year when people show up to run this race, there is an old miner. The guy who created the race is an old miner named Ken Clover. And Ken always gives this speech. And he says, don't worry about this race. You know why? Because you're tougher than you think you are, and you can go further than you think you can. You've already done the hard part. You got here. You did your job as getting here. My job is to get you to the finish line. And to me, that's the message right there. Ken, earpiece just dropped out, reinserted, back in action. But Ken's message is, people show up in a race thinking they're all alone. What they forget is all around them, there are all these people that are ready to help, that want to help. People get inspired by helping. At the Leadville Trail, everyone's out in the woods, and they're there to hand you like a piece of candy or a cup of broth. People want to help you if you just raise your head, look around, and ask for some assistance. And if you ask for that help, you'll go much further than you think you can.
Thank you for that inspirational story and a message for life. Beaming in live from Hawaii there. That's Chris McDougall. Thank you very much for sharing your time. I know you're going to jump in with some children after this and have some Q&A as well in the next event. But thank you very much for sharing your time with us, Chris.
It was a delight, Jeff. I'd love to do it anytime.
Sounds fantastic. Now, we've spent some time today doing some crazy things. We've heard from amazing people at the Smithsonian, John Hopkins, National Geographic, inspiring people behind that. We've had Chris on there. We've got the Captain Tom Foundation. Hannah was amazing in telling us how to engage with people and to do things the right kind of way and to work with them and shed a bit of hope and light in what we're doing. Then Disney came online and we had to draw Olaf, which is a great time heading towards Christmas. We hope you've enjoyed the time in the Global Classroom today that you shared with us. Remember the message behind that, to value our generations, to value our elderly people, to learn from them, to share with them, to be with them. Remember the importance of art and how it can be in terms of a calming influence in our lives, taking time out to stop and pause, despite the crazy world that we have outside of here with COVID going on. We hope that you all stay safe, you stay well, and we'll see you all again soon in the new year for a fantastic 2021. All the best from the Global Classroom. Take care.